And it's also about planning ahead and creating romantic moments. When I say the words scheduled sex, a lot of people give me an eye roll because they think, oh, sex should be spontaneous. It should, like the measure of how passionate something is if you're swept away by it. But you can't really expect that to happen in a busy modern time after you've been dating, once you're married for a while. And I think having plans to pleasure each other is really the trick to keeping intimacy alive.
Hello and welcome to the Disrupt the Everyday podcast. We're here to help you navigate life while disrupting the status quo. Our discussions cover a number of topics relevant to everyday life. We discuss everything from relationships to entrepreneurship. We also engage in some difficult but important conversations. And now, here are your hosts, Brian and Tanya Hamilton.
Welcome to episode 31 of the Disrupt the Everyday podcast. If you want to reignite the intimacy in your relationship or just improve it, this is the episode for you. Today, we're joined by Susan Bratton. Susan is an intimacy expert who focuses primarily on monogamous couples. We've got a lot of ground to cover, so let's jump right into the conversation. Susan, thanks for joining us today.
Hi, Brian. Hi, Tanya. I'm so happy to be here. I love disrupting things.
Oh, that's awesome. We're going to have a great time.
There's a lot that needs to be disrupted too. So much.
Awesome. All right. Well, we'll start disrupting things by asking, who is Susan Bratton?
Well, I know the answer to that, so I'm glad you asked me. I am a 60-year-old sexpert, happily married for 30 years. We have a 24-year-old daughter. We live in California. My husband and I run our company together. We actually run two companies together with our team. One is Personal Life Media, and the other is a company called The 20. That's based on, have you ever heard the 80-20 rule? Like 20% of the effort gets you 80% of the results.
Yes.
We named it after that because it's a supplement company. And about 20 years ago, almost 20 years ago now, we ran into marital conflict because I had been making love with my husband for a decade and 11 years. Actually, it was our 11-year anniversary, and I got a little drunk and I said, I'm very unhappy in our relationship. You're checked out and it's not good. And he said, I'm very unhappy too. You don't want to have sex with me and you avoid me, and I'm really pissed off at you. And we ended up doing therapy and going to a bunch of sex workshops because our issue wasn't money. We were gainfully employed and doing well. It was sex. And I had never had an orgasm from intercourse. And I was 40 something years old. And I just didn't want to have sex anymore. It just wasn't that great for me. And we did our therapy work and we did our sex workshop work. And it was like an instant renaissance in our relationship. All of a sudden, it was like, boom, sex is not that hard to have. You just need someone to tell you what to do. And what we realized is that it's pretty much just the blind leading the blind out there. And that sex is actually a learnable skill. And we had such a fantastic shift in our relationship once we started getting some education and some skills that we decided to start a business together. And we launched Personal Life Media to essentially bring all those sex workshops that we were brave enough to go to that frankly were so edgy, and to essentially put that information online so that anyone, solo or in a relationship, anywhere in the world, who was what we call a sexual seeker, someone for whom sex was important to them, they could come and they could get the kinds of information we were getting at these. We spent over $30,000 going to these workshops. They take time and money, and not everybody has that. So we thought, how can we use the internet to digitally deliver these experiences for couples that were the things that really shifted our relationship? And I have to say, last night we made love and we were so tired because the night before we made love and we had the most incredible sex. I mean, here I am 30 years with this man and I was worn out from orgasms. I came so well and so long and so hard. I was literally exhausted yesterday. It was crazy. I wore myself out with my man. So I believe in sex education. I believe in orgasm techniques. I believe that everybody has the right to have this incredible pleasure. And I also understand that we don't learn it from our families. It's not their job to teach us. And we can't learn it from pornography because that's very degrading to women. And there's no place to learn it. And I wanted to be a place where, for basically people who wanted to transform having sex into making love, that's what I do. I teach advanced orgasm skills. I teach people how to have incredible orgasms, how to connect their hearts and their genitals together, and how to communicate in the bedroom. And I also teach a lot of regenerative sexual treatments and practices, because we get old and stuff starts to wear out, but it can be, all that atrophy of aging can be reversed, and people just need to know about it. So that's who I am, what I do, and how I got here with you today.
That's great. So I guess disclaimer, obviously this is not a typical conversation that we would have on here, but you know what? It's so important, right? And, as you listen, it may be a little bit uncomfortable, but we're going to ask all the hard questions and everybody just gets to listen and follow along. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it and just getting your knowledge and insight for sure.
Yeah.
Well, sorry, Brian, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I think my favorite part of all of that in the story was how it actually started, because, you talked about the challenges that you had in your marriage and where it ended up, but you rarely hear a scenario like that starts with, I got a little drunk.
Oh, really? A couple of martinis on my 11th wedding anniversary and everything came out. But it was interesting because the three things we did to turn our marriage around, the number one thing was we were reading this book by Brad Blanton called Radical Honesty. And we said, we're not going to be able to fix our problem unless we get to 110% truthiness. We got to start telling the truth. And that's when I started to say to him things like, sex is no good for me. I'm not having orgasms. I don't want to do it anymore. I feel like a masturbatory tool. It's no pleasure for me. And he would hear that, and he would really be wounded, because he'd be like, it's so great for me. How come it's no good for you? I thought I was really good in bed. We got very honest, which was our number one thing. The second thing we did was we took on this expanded orgasm practice, which I want to tell you about, because I really think it's pivotal for people in long-term monogamous relationships to have a practice like this. So I want to explain what it is. And then the third thing that we did was we started to understand how, you've heard the golden rule, do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. We were having a marriage that was playing by the golden rule. He was treating me the way he wanted to be treated, and I was treating him the way I wanted to be treated, instead of the platinum rule, which is treat your partner the way they want to be treated and have them do the same for you. And as soon as we got really clear on what it was we valued most and wanted out of our relationship with our partner, and I can give you the specifics, it's quite interesting and it helps a lot of people, that shifted things too. It was like, oh, that's why you do those things to me. Oh, I get it now. I didn't realize it explains a lot of the behavior you have in your relationships too. So it ends up that one of the programs we have is called Expand Her Orgasm Tonight, and it teaches this expanded orgasm couples practice. It's an orgasmic meditation practice, believe it or not. It's a stroking technique. And then I went on to write a book called Relationship Magic that I've sold over 200,000 copies of. I've been on television all the time about it. It's a super popular book. It's at myrelationshipmagic.com. So telling the truth, understanding what my husband wanted, and him understanding what I needed, and getting up every day and doing those simple things. And then having this way of helping me cross the chasm so that I could learn how to have orgasms from intercourse. Because if you're in a heterosexual monogamous relationship and you're not having orgasms from intercourse as the woman, how long are you going to want to keep doing it? I made it 11 years. A lot of people don't make it that long. That's why I think there's this thing called the 7-year itch. So And also, Tanya, you said, well, we're going to have some frank conversation. And it's very interesting because it took me a long time to have the courage to speak the way I do about sexuality. Now it's second nature. But what I've found is that people are grown-ups. Grown-ups are able to handle the truth, and that we spend so much time in our culture walking on eggshells and withholding and burying the lead and just doing all these coping mechanisms, when we could just start telling each other the truth, and it would make our relationships easier. We'd have more confidence with each other, and it ultimately is much more juicy and interesting to be in a relationship that's 110% truthy. So those were really the big shifters for us in creating what I think is that comfortable, deeply connected, fully supported, passionate intimacy that I believe we all want.
That's neat. And I was just thinking when you were saying that. So, at the beginning of your relationship and when you get into marriage, nobody wants to say anything wrong because, you don't want conflict, you don't want to be fighting and things like that, right? And I think that's the biggest thing. People don't really know how to deal with conflict. And we talk about this. It's funny because, we talk about this with a psychologist, and now here we are talking to you about the fact that about the conflict.
Yeah.
Now, if you can get to that point and not have to wait 11 years to just be able to say what it is you need.
Yes.
And that falls under every category. Now we're talking about this intimacy. If you can just tell your partner you're not going to offend them. I think it's how it comes across too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody wants to hear that they're horrible at something or, that kind of stuff. But if you can just say, that's actually not what it is, what I want. This is what I would like, right? And look at that. You could save yourself from all those years of not enjoying something.
Yeah. I have one of my top selling books is called Sexual Soulmates, The 6 Essentials of Connected Sex. And one of the 6 essentials of connected sex is something called the Sexual Soulmate Pact, PACT. It's an agreement. And it's basically my number one bedroom communication skill, because so many times the feminine is very afraid of hurting the masculine's ego. And the masculine is, he's much more certain and sure of himself than he probably should be, because he's testosterone dominant. And so he's got a lot of confidence that he knows what he's doing. He's doing the right things, and he wants to do the right things, and he wants to give the feminine incredible pleasure. But she doesn't want to hurt his feelings or make him contract or what have you. So she doesn't say. And a lot of times she doesn't say what she wants because she says, well, I'm not really sure what I want. I just know what I'm getting, isn't it? So I can't really give him any constructive feedback. So I just keep my mouth shut and deal with whatever it is. So these are very, very common constructs. And the Sexual Soulmate Pact is an agreement between couples that teaches couples, and it's free. You can get it at sexualsoulmatepact.com. You can download this, and it's really good to read together. Read it separately. If you're in a couple, read it separately, and then get together and talk about it and establish your agreement that you're going to start saying what you want and what you need in every moment. Because one of the things that we forget is that we are Homo sapiens. And if you think about the tree of life, and you imagine the tree of life in your head, and you look at the branches of the tree, and the entire animal kingdom is on this tree. There's the whales and the dolphins, and there's the lions and the kitty cats and the ponies and the puppies and the barnacles and the mollusks and, all this crazy stuff. And there's this branch of that tree called the great apes. And the things that are on that branch, the entities, the beings that are on that branch are chimpanzees, bonobos, orangutans, Homo sapiens. That's us. We are basically primates living in these monkey bodies. And we think we're so highly evolved, but we are so affected by the vagaries of our sleep, our stress, our sugar, our alcohol consumption, our anxiety, our depression, our what's going on with our families and our kids and our work and all this stuff, that we forget that. And we also forget that the masculine has testosterone as his dominant hormone, and he wakes up every day horny. Every day. It's unrelenting for him. Where the feminine, we are on this 28-day moon cycle, and our desire ebbs and flows with that moon, even after menopause. And so here he is every day, like, ah, and we're like, la, 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 la. And so he's always so ready to go. He's just ready to go. Men are awake and aware and ready when you need us. Like, if you are horny and you're like, baby, I'm horny. He's like, I'm ready, baby. I'm right here. I got you. Let's go. Anywhere, anytime, pretty much, right? Because of testosterone. And so for him, one of the things I say to guys is don't forget to turn around and come back and get us, girls, because we're not ready to go like you are. Not only do we not get this instant erection like you do, he has one sexy thought of you and your laundry and he's whoop, ready to go. And for us, we have this, I always say that our vulva, our female genital system it's like an English muffin where you got to warm it up and then you got to put the butter on, and the butter's got to melt into all the nooks and crannies. That's our blood flow. Our blood flow flows into our vulva very slowly, where for our male-bodied partners, it's so fast that they have to slow down and come back and help us get turned on, help us get out of our crazy heads and our estrogen thinking about a million things and into our bodies. And then we want something different every day. We're so the opposite of the steady state of our testosterone partners. Some days we want to be held and petted like a kitty cat, and other days we're a lioness and we want to attack them. And so they can't know what we want in any given day because we live in these crazy animal bodies. And so we have to be able to give our guys the clues to what feels good in the moment for us. And they have to understand that it has nothing to do with their skills and everything just to do with the vagaries of our humanity. And once they can get over that feeling of doing it wrong and know that the information you're giving them is what they need to do it right, which is all they want to do, is do a great job for us. That sexual soulmate pact, that agreement where it takes away your worry about, I don't know what I want. Yeah, you do. Listen to your body because she knows. She will tell you. She knows what she wants in every moment. Getting women to trust that and then speak it into the bedroom so that their partners can take it in and adjust. Man, that in and of itself is probably my number one best sex technique I've ever created, was just how you create that agreement with your partner.
Absolutely. No, the example that you gave there was how, us as men with the testosterone flowing, we're essentially ready every day. But in the situation, I know a reality for a lot of men is that they don't have that desire. So what are some of the things that could be potentially causing that for us?
Well, one is nutrition. I'd say the number one thing is nutrition. When a man is not eating healthy food, he is not making the hormones and neurotransmitters that drive his libido. The number two thing most often is that he's not turned on by his partner. And it's funny that women will guess 1 million things except that. They never quite figure out that she's let herself go, or that she's cranky all the time, or that she's no fun to be with, or that she's emasculated him, or whatever it might be. So that's actually number two. And there is just so much stress out there. And a lot of guys end up being workaholics, and they get disconnected from their own bodies. They feel like they don't even inhabit their body anymore, that they're just this machine that's doing this work. So one of the other things that I really like is a technique that also comes from sexual soulmates called the soulmate embrace. And that is something where couples who feel disconnected from each other can reconnect by holding and being held. It reestablishes the masculine feminine polarity. It resets the couple's nervous systems. It generates oxytocin. It's free to download as well. It's called the Soulmate Embrace at soulmateembrace.com. And it's a really beautiful thing. A lot of times when we have our partner hold us, well, first of all, what happens is something will happen. It could be an emotional or physical medical issue or some kind of trauma or what have you that reduces a person's desire in the relationship. And then once they don't want to have intercourse anymore, they kind of hit a wall and they don't know how to, it's like an insurmountable obstacle. They don't know what to do. They've got this problem that's keeping them from having intercourse. And really, they stop touching, they stop being affectionate, they emotionally contract and draw away, they become platonic, and they don't know how to find their way back. And finding their way back often starts with just holding and being held. But when you hold a partner and you feel them relax, a lot of times then the holding partner lets go. Oh, she's relaxed or he's relaxed. When actually that was the very beginning of the very first stage of relaxation. The holds need to be long and very relaxed. And so the soulmate embrace is a good way to kind of get that connection going again. And then of course, radical honesty, being truthful about what it is that's preventing you from having desire. You have to say what it is, because what I found is that there's nothing that can keep you from having intimacy if you want it. It doesn't matter whether you can have an erection anymore, you can still have incredible orgasmic pleasure together. And almost all erectile dysfunction can be reversed. All the painful intercourse that women suffer from, lack of lubrication, those kinds of things can all be remediated. You can really remediate the genital system. It's very responsive because there's so much blood flow that goes to it. So it's just finding ways to come back together and to recreate that physical connection, touch and holding. That's a big part of it. Then there's the whole other world, which is we're just bored with each other. That's a separate entity, which we could talk about as well, because I think that's very, very common, especially when you've got little kids running around and they're constantly barging into the bedroom and you have no privacy and you're exhausted. I mean, that's a whole nother thing that's also solvable.
There you go. Okay. Well, so before we get into that, I just wanted to,
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. To talk about intimacy, because we believe that, I think it goes throughout the day, right? It's not just like, okay, kids are sleeping. What do we do now? Right. And I think when you have all these kids, when you are working and the schedule is so busy, and if you don't have that, then that's when it's like, okay, who are you?
Yeah.
What do you want? Right. So do you have any suggestions for building intimacy throughout the day?
Well, there's touch. Touch is the number one thing. And if you work out of the home and you don't have the opportunity for that, then of course, a text or a quick phone call, a cute picture, a little selfie, those kinds of touch points are nice. But it's really about staying physically connected when you're within each other's presence. And it's also about planning ahead and creating romantic moments. When I say the words scheduled sex, a lot of people give me an eye roll because they think, oh, sex should be spontaneous. It should, like the measure of how passionate something is if you're swept away by it. But you can't really expect that to happen in a busy modern time after you've been dating, once you're married for a while. And I think having plans to pleasure each other is really the trick to keeping intimacy alive. When you move each other's bodies, you move your emotions. So whether you're doing things like romantic events, going for a walk in nature together, riding your bicycles, even with your family, riding your bicycle can be very romantic together. Going ice skating, rollerblading, kayaking, rock climbing, a climbing gym, going to the beach, going to the lake, a rowboat, and horseback riding, any sports, team, group, family, couple sports, anything like that is kind of a big part of staying tethered. And then just touching each other, the hugs, the walk by squeezes, the blowing of the kiss on the eyelids, the stroking of the hair, the verbal appreciations. You look sexy today. That dress looks great on you. Those pants make your butt look good, whatever it is. Those types of things are, you're so beautiful to me. Really, really important. Appreciation for a job well done. Baby, thank you so much for taking the trash out every week without fail, me never having to ask you. I love that. Whatever it is, those types of appreciations, especially verbal appreciation in front of your children. It's very, very important for them to hear. And it's very important for them to see you hug and kiss and touch and hold hands and put your hand on your partner's leg in the car and tickle their ear and play with their hair and to do that to your children too, to love them and hold them and touch them and get them used to feeling the warmth of your connection. So you really just have to decide that you're going to have that kind of a relationship and put the energy into it. And then as far as the scheduled sex dates, it is very important to keep learning new skills together over time. Whether it's the expanded orgasm practice or awakening your G-spot or becoming a multi-orgasmic man or learning how to give and receive erotic massages, genital massages, full body sensual massages, practicing your kissing, trying some role play, wearing lingerie, buying and wearing lingerie for each other or sexy outfits for each other, trying new sex positions, having sex in different locations, trying and playing with sex toys, not separately, but together, incorporating sex toys into your lovemaking. There's some really good ones that I always recommend. So these are the kinds of things that keep it fun, keep it spicy, and keep your sexual development, your sexual personal growth continuing to expand.
That's so neat because I think we all look at, okay, our work life, we want to do training, we want to do workshops, right? Our personal life, we want to get to the gym, we want to work out, we want to stay healthy. How many people actually think about their sex life being something that they need to continue to work on and grow in, right? Yeah. Especially in, for parents who are busy and then you have all that other stuff. So I wanted you to say that to everybody, that hearing from the professional, right? And that intimacy is not just like, it's something that really should just flow in your day, right? Yeah. Like you were saying, it's just part of your day. It's being aware. And I'm sure if it's something that's not happening right now for people, it's going to be awkward at first, right? It's going to be like, oh, okay, I haven't heard you say that for 11 years, right? It's going to be different, but you could probably let us know. It gets easier as time goes on. And then it just becomes normal, part of the day, right?
Practice makes perfect.
Mm-hmm. Perfect.
Absolutely. Now, I want to circle back to the kind of example that you were leading into and unpack that a little bit as in terms of couples who are just bored of each other. Yeah. How do we remedy that?
Well, it's learning those new skills. I really think the expanded orgasm practice is the Rosetta Stone to almost everything else. And what that is, I'll break it down. Expanded orgasm is a type of orgasm where if you think about an orgasm, most of the time you think about going up, getting turned on, you're climbing a mountain, you're seeing this visual line on the chart going up. And then you have a climax and it just drops off a cliff. That's one orgasmic climactic moment. Then you think about, okay, well, there's multiple orgasms and men and women both equally can be multi-orgasmic. Men associate ejaculation with climax, but they're actually separate systems in the body, and a man can learn how to have full body orgasms over and over and over again, just like his female bodied partner. It's just a learned skill. So you think about multiple orgasms. You come up, and then you have another one. Now you're looking at a bunch of peaks and valleys. That's a multiple orgasm. Then you have the extended orgasm. And the extended orgasm is taking that moment of time, that moment of climax, and being able to sustain sensation and stay in that moment of climax and almost take that moment and stretch it out like taffy, where now you're able to get into that heightened orgasmic experience and make it last for a second or 2 seconds or 3 seconds or 4 seconds. before you come back down the other side of the mountain. And then an expanded orgasm is actually where you're going into that moment of climax and expanding it, stretching it, extending it, but then you're going up again to another higher level and expanding that moment and going up again and expanding that moment, so that you're actually expanding your capacity to feel orgasmic pleasure considerably. And the way that you do that, and this can be done to the masculine and the feminine, but in a heterosexual monogamous relationship, because women come into their arousal so much more slowly than their male-bodied partner, women need that butter to melt in the nooks and crannies. And this expanded orgasm practice, which is, I'm going to give you the program, is a hands-on stroking technique where you stroke the woman's clitoral structure. And I say clitoral structure very specifically because the clitoris is not that little nub, that little tip. That's just the tip of the iceberg. You've probably seen those pictures on the internet of the clitoral structure with the head and the shaft and the little arms and the little legs that look like little punching bags. That's what's all that buried erectile tissue in her vulva. She's got as much erectile tissue in her vulva wrapped around her vagina as he does in his penis. But it takes a while to get the blood flowing in there. So what the expanded orgasmic practice does is it's a manual stroking technique. It's a hands on her vulva stroking technique that gets all that blood flowing into her vulva and allows her to take that moment of climax from this very delicate stroke on her clitoris and stretch that out, that moment of time out like taffy, and then stack those. So she has the ability to have orgasm after orgasm after orgasm that flood her vulva with the blood flow that expands her vulva, gives her more surface area. That surface area holds more sensation that sends more signals of pleasure to her brain. So she has more intensity of orgasmic pleasure. And when she gets that manual stimulation before she's penetrated, she is able to have incredible pleasure both before and during penetration, which keeps her male-bodied partner happy because she loves the penetration. And it gives her the ability to get into her zone and have all this incredible sensation and pleasure that she's been missing because she's been having sex too fast. And the very first thing that people say is, how am I going to have the time for that? And the thing is that every time you make love before your partner is fully ready is like putting another brick in the wall of your future sexless marriage. How do you have the time to not do it? Mm-hmm. How could you not do it? There are some women who are very, very lucky to be orgasmic from intercourse. They are still only scratching the surface of their orgasmic potential. So it's couples settling down together, him learning how to give, her learning how to receive, the practice of him finding the spot, the practice of him giving without expecting anything in return, the time where you connect limbically and you become one, you merge your nervous systems together, the intimacy of opening to all of that giving and receiving, the time that's devoted to her pleasure and her pleasure alone, although giving her pleasure is pleasure too. These things really create a foundation of intimacy like nothing else.
So on the whole time part, I got to ask the question for all the ladies and all the men. How often are people supposed to be having sex a week? Everybody always asks that question.
Yeah. Well, sex is very, very healthy and very, very good for you. It's fantastic for your vascular system. It produces serotonin and dopamine, pro-social, positive, happy neurotransmitters. It helps balance your hormones. Semen is excellent for women because we get serotonin, we get testosterone, which gives us courage and confidence and lowers our anxiety because that's in semen. We get luteinizing hormone, which regulates our menses. The closeness and the connection generates oxytocin. It reboots your nervous system, and it puts your body into a level of pleasure that literally nothing else does. So doing it as often as possible is very, 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 very healthy and nurturing for you both. It calms you down and connects you together and makes you just feel so much more grounded and loved and cared for. So doing it as much as you can is really important. And that's why I like the expanded orgasm practice as well, because when he says, do you want to have sex? She says no, because she's not there like he is. But when he says, why don't we just lay down and let me stroke you for 15 minutes? And if you don't want to have sex, we don't have to after that. If you don't want to have intercourse, these are disconnected things. I just want to give you pleasure. And she's like, all right, I'll do it. You have to talk us into giving us pleasure. It's crazy. I mean, for so many women, we're just never really completely turned on like our partners are, and they have to help us get there. So let me just lay you down and give you a yoni massage for 15 minutes, and we'll just go from there. No pressure. And that will end up netting you more intercourse over time because you've taken the pressure off of having to do it, and you've allowed her body to get to the point where it wants to. So how many times a week? I don't know. It's such an individual discussion, but more than you are, probably.
There you go.
Right? More than you are. And that's what's holding you back from doing it is you're not ready. What do you need? You need more genital pleasuring. Genital pleasuring is what expanded orgasm is. And it is the trick to having a great sex life.
The other thing I'm curious to ask you about is, in terms of whether we call it pillow talk or talking dirty, I guess men and women have kind of different perceptions there. Can you unpack that for us a bit as well?
Yeah, I actually have a book at dirtytalkbook.com. Don't I have the world's best collection of URLs?
There you go.
You do.
I do. And I have so many free gifts because the thing that I found is I've got plenty of things people can buy, but I just give because you have to decide you like me and you trust me. And I don't know what it is you want to know about. So I just kind of have 30 different things depending on where people are. I just try to meet people where they are. And I'm very much the person that teaches couples how to make love. That's my thing. I don't do the kinky, the BDSM. I'm not into any of that stuff. Particularly, what I do is lovemaking techniques and orgasm skills. And the verbal piece of it is so important. There are people there's three kinds of lovers. There's people who are auditory, visual, and kinesthetic. And you're all three. Everyone is all three, but you're dominant in one. And there are people who really love and need verbal encouragement, and they need approval, and they need appreciation, and they need to hear it. And there are other people who really love to have you tell them fantasy stories while you're making love, and that really gets them turned on. There are other people who want you to witness the excitement and the turn on and how beautiful they are and how their yoni is opening like a flower or how gorgeous their lingam is, lingam being the penis, yoni being the vulva. So there's lots of different kinds of talk that's in no way derogatory, in no way dirty or yucky. There's so many kinds of dirty talk you can do that are actually loving and sexy, and they turn you on. And so my book, Dirty Talk Book, is really about, I called it Dirty Talk because that's what people think it's called. That's what we use. Those are the words we use to talk about it. But there's so many ways you can, and in this particular free ebook, it's 5 different ways to talk dirty that aren't dirty. And I really like those kinds of things. The more sensual talk, pillow talk, verbal appreciation, sexy stories. My husband is auditory in his theta state, the state of turn on. And a lot of times I'm not. So it actually takes me out of my turn on. So I'll do it for him, and I'll get on him and make love to him. And I've been working on my cowgirl, and I'm getting pretty good at it. And tell him a dirty story the whole time I'm doing it, and just drive him crazy, and that's like a little special treat that I'll do for him sometimes when we're making love, just as one of the many things we do to keep it fun and spicy together. Where for me, I'm much more kinesthetic. It's all about touch for me. I don't even need music. I don't even need my eyes open. I'm just like this feeling being. And I like to just go way out into the stratosphere of my orgasms and just, really have intensity of sensation. That's what I love the most. And some people are so visual. They love the dirty dancing and the lingerie and the way your ass looks and having sex in a mirror and things like that. And so it's fun to know what your partner's leading modality is and kind of give them that. And it's fun for them to know what yours is too.
Mm-hmm. So we are 38 and 39. Now, can we talk a little bit as we age?
Yeah.
So I hear 40 for ladies can be like a whole eye-opening era of like, they're good. So be in their 30s, your sex drive is maybe a little slower. All of a sudden 40 hits and it's like, okay, wow, where did this come from? I've also heard opposite too. And then, as you get older. So can we chat a little bit about that?
Yeah.
How do we work through that? So whether it's going really well or if all of a sudden we regress as we age.
Yeah. You can have a sexual renaissance at any age in your life. It can be at 70. It can be at 40. It doesn't matter. Here, the thing is that you kind of have these decades of experience where in your 20s, sex is new. You don't know what you're doing. You're figuring it out. It's all fresh. You're kind of finding your way. In your 30s, you're having your kids, you're getting married, you're settling down, you're working on your career, and you're learning more about what you like sexually, and you're moving forward. But by the time you get into your 40s and your kids are kind of on their feet a bit, and you start to face your own mortality, like, oh, I'm like a real grown-up person now. Oh, what do I need to do? That's when you start thinking to yourself, if sex has been important to you, I want to work on it. I want to make sure I use it before I lose it. A lot of people are thinking that I use it before I lose it. The good news is you never really do need to lose it. You can always even get it back if you have lost it, which is good. By the time you hit your 50s, there are a lot of people who are starting to let go of body image issues and not worry about things so much. They're a little more comfortable in their own skin, if you will, and they're slowing down and they're learning to become better lovers. And by the time people are in their 60s, they're actually quite accomplished lovers. They've gotten some pretty decent skills over the years, and they're starting to really tap into more of their orgasmic potential. And then by the time they hit their 70s, if they're still really devoted to their sexuality, they're starting to do things to reverse the atrophy of aging. Health considerations come in. And they have to think about, okay, I'm going to go do Gaines wave treatments or Femi wave treatments, or I'm going to buy myself a V-Fit or a Phoenix Pro, or I'm going to get an O shot or a P shot or whatever it might be. And they're starting to look into those things from the 50s through the 70s. And then if they continue on, they are finding that they still have if they're lucky enough to have a good partner who also likes to make love with them, they're finding that they're having really good sex in their older age, and that they actually have more time to explore their sexuality and increase their skill set. There are 20 different kinds of orgasms the male body can have, and 20 different kinds of orgasms the female body can have. And there are all these different practices, from G-spot awakening and female ejaculation to male multiple orgasm to prostate massage and prostate orgasms. And so sexuality is a lifelong gift that, for those who want it, it never stops giving. I never run out of things I want to do and try. And I have a lot of things I do and try. There's always more with sexuality. It never ends. It's like food. It's very similar to food. You know how with food, your tastes change over time, and your cooking skills get better, and you start eating more healthy and healthy as you age. It's the same with sex. The meals still delight you. The sex still delights you as you age. Food is good and sex is good your whole life.
There you go. Okay. So for everybody who's retiring, hey, you have more time.
Exactly.
You still play golf, but you still have time.
Now, one thing that I kind of wanted to ask you was just in terms of, and I think this will be helpful because I'm sure there's a lot of people in this boat who are listening to this conversation. But if you could go back in time and, visit yourself when you were that married mother of a really young child, and, you still hadn't really enjoyed that whole sexual experience.
Yeah.
What would you tell yourself at that point with what you know now?
Well, I'd say get started on that expanded orgasm practice and just start learning. I wish I had started learning earlier. I wish I'd known there were things to learn.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Because I know my husband would have been up for it. We just didn't know what we didn't know. So that's literally it. I'm so happy to be here with the two of you, giving people all these ideas, because one of the things that I notice is that what I mostly do is give people permission for their desire and let them know there's nothing wrong with it and that it's all good, and ideas for fun. Most people have a pretty desultory sex life because they literally just don't know what to do. That's all it is. So I love how easy my job is, because once I just tell you, try this thing, try that thing, try this sex toy, try this practice, here's where your G-spot is. Did you know you could do a prostate orgasm? And they're like, I don't know any of that stuff. I'm going to try it all. So it's really fun for me because it's actually really easy. I get to be a hero so easily when I just awaken people's mind to the possibilities.
Wow. So how you continue to work with your husband?
Yeah.
How is that? I guess in society, everybody's taught to, keep your sexual life and your business sort of separate, right? How does that work? You guys are literally.
How do you manage to get stuff done during the day? It sounds like you're pretty active as it is.
Every once in a while we have sex during the day, but mostly we have sex at night. We have that expanded orgasm practice a couple times a week, which I really like. And we really always start our lovemaking dates with a yoni massage, because he really doesn't want to have intercourse with me till I've had tons of orgasms. He knows better. He's like, you'll just get mad. You'll just get cranky. I'm not doing it. There's no quickies. I'm not giving you a quickie. No. So that's a smart idea on his part, because I would get all cranky. I have no control over my yoni. She has a mind of her own, and she gets her nose out of joint, and she gets all like, whenever she doesn't get what she wants. So we pretty much just are slaves to my yoni and giving her what she wants so she's not all bitchy.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. And that's at 60.
At 60. Yes, right. I'm having the best sex of my life at 60. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Wow. I just wanted to go back to that. You had said setting a date. That really stuck out.
Yeah.
Because like you said, I think it's so, why not? I know people think, well, why, if I have to do that, then it's not as important or, relevant and all that kind of stuff. But that's a big takeaway.
Yeah.
Just setting, like you said, lovemaking date.
Mm-hmm.
Just
Yeah. Conversely, like you said, it's not important if you have to schedule it, but I think that really, it's kind of counterintuitive to think that way, even though it's really easy to. It's if it's important, you're going to put it on the calendar. And I'm a big advocate for putting things on the calendar, but that's not something that I would have ever thought to put in my calendar. Right?
Yeah.
When we first started this podcast, and we were, doing a brainstorming session, I had said, I really want some like an intimacy coach or somebody on. Like, I know it's a little bit more of an uncomfortable conversation, but I think especially couples in their 30s, they, we all don't put enough time and effort into it. And I think that could also keep a lot of relationships together. Right. So, and when, you start looking, it's like, ooh, that one might, I want somebody who talks about it respectfully and, with class and, just teaches. And so when Brian told me that you had touched base, I was like, okay, after looking at him, like, yes, Susan sounds like she would be perfect.
Excellent. I'm so happy to hear that. Yeah, you have to find your person, and that I can't please everybody, but I am pretty good with the monogamous couples. That's my sweet spot because I'm one myself. So I have a very successful sex life with my man for 30 years, and that counts for a lot.
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure.
So thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to hearing how your erotic play dates are going. That's what we call them, erotic play dates. And when you start, see, you're already laughing and having fun. It's just so nice when you start thinking about, okay, we could have sex or we could have an erotic play date. I would always rather have an erotic play date. That just sounds so much fun.
Right now, as we're wrapping up, Susan, what are some of the other ways that people can learn more about you and just hear more content from you?
Well, there's two main places. The first is my main website, personallifemedia.com. That's where I have thousands of articles that are searchable. So if you have any area of interest, you can just search and you'll get my opinions and advice on them. The second is I have a video website at betterlover.com. And Better Lover has over 200 videos on myriad topics of sexuality where I explain things. And I like to dress up in silly costumes, like police, Bavarian barmaid, astronaut, you name it. I might like to dress up in silly costumes and just have fun and teach people how to have hot sex. And then, but all in respectful ways. And then I think the products and programs and free gifts we talked about soulmateembrace.com, sexual soulmate pact, pact.com, myrelationshipmagic.com was the relationship values. We talked about that. Expand Her Orgasm Tonight is the expanded orgasm practice. Is there anything else we talked about? I think those were the ones the
book, the Dirty
Talk book. dirtytalkbook.com was the other one with the 5 ways to talk dirty that don't feel weird. How to talk dirty without feeling weird is basically what it is. Yeah. So those are lots of places you can find out about me. And if you have a question for me, and you get on my mailing list by opting into any of those free gifts, you can reply to any email and I will get it personally and I will reply to you. So if there's something that you have a question about from this podcast, we are here to disrupt the everyday and I am there every day to help you do that. So just reply and I will get back to you in response to your questions because that's how I got to know how to help people was by doing it. So it's my pleasure to do that too. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for coming on. And for everyone listening, again, those URLs are all really easy to remember, but if you did miss them, they'll be in the blog post for this episode at disrupttheeveryday.com. So we'll have links to all of the materials and everything that we've talked about today.
Thanks for listening to the Disrupt the Everyday podcast. For more ways to listen, connect with us on social media. To be a guest or to partner with us, check out our link tree at Disrupt the Everyday. Join us next time for more ways to disrupt the everyday.